Hey everyone, it's Glargity again. This time I'm here with a story time instead of a drama video, and I recently learned that I have a lot of story times, and my friend said it would be good to share. Full disclosure, I originally put this story on Reddit to vent under the username Glargity. I just revamped it for YouTube to make it a little smoother for you guys. And if you like the story, please like, subscribe, and if you could, tell me the scariest thing what you've encountered in the real world. Of course, any names of the people I used are censored for their privacy, and locations as well, but I promise the story is just as interesting without them. So back in 2014, when I was a kid just figuring things out, like most AFAB people, I fell into babysitting. And this was the worst babysitting job I ever had. For some background, at the time I was 14, female presenting, and I lived in the sketchiest neighborhood in my town. I was impressionable, naive, and in need of cash. I was also constantly trying to avoid my parents' place. So when a babysitting gig came up, I jumped at it. It didn't pay a lot because, again, I lived in a poor neighborhood, but the kids were good, the parents were nice, understanding, and more often than not, a 6-hour shift would make me richer by $40. And if you ask me, that's actually a pretty sweet deal for a 14-year-old, okay? $40 goes a long way at Pizza, okay? And that brings us to October 2014. My cousin brings up a babysitting gig that he can't make because of his mother. I can't remember what exactly the drama was, because this sort of thing happens so much. He told me that the gig paid $60 for an 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. shift, and understandably, I was kind of excited. This was $20 over what I would normally get. I got the woman's Facebook from him, and I decided to message her that night. I told her I was my cousin's friend, and he had recommended me to replace him that Friday. The woman seemed super happy, she gave me her address, and told me to be there about 15 minutes early, and that she was happy she got a replacement so soon. When I went to look up her address, I found out why the money was going to be so good. Her place was in the middle of the suburbs, and I was pumped. It was going to be the easiest $60 I had ever made, and I was going to eat like a king for a week thanks to this woman. And we met completely by chance, so I couldn't thank my lucky stars enough. And the thing was, her house was only an hour away. So on Friday, put on my nice sneakers, took my phone and a sweater, and I walked an hour to suburbia. And when I got there, I was 15 minutes early, as requested. I was being good. I wanted her to like me. And as soon as she answered the door, I did my usual, "Hi, how are you? I'm me, my cousin's friend." And before I could continue, I looked down at her legs, and I realized, oh God, she's not wearing pants. Or at least that's what I thought, before she clarified that they were just flesh-colored leggings and invited me in. I was very embarrassed, but it was just an awkward first meet and we could get past it. And something you don't know about me, because I'm a personality on the internet and not your sibling, is that when you touch me, I freak out. But she doesn't know this, so she puts her arm right around me and drags me into the door, which was super weird. She was like a foot taller than me and 3 times as big, and my scrawny self, I felt so suffocated. And she proceeds to tell me that I have free reign of the home, which I know what that means. It means, actually, you don't have free reign of the home. Just stay in the main area and don't touch anything. So I just thanked her, broke free, and opted to sit on the edge of the couch because that's what made the most sense at the time. And then, because it's almost 8 p.m., I asked to see her kid, which I don't think is a weird request for a babysitter to ask. And she told me that she already put him to sleep. So it would be no issues for me. I just have to make sure that if he gets up in the middle of the night, he knows what's going on. Which, I don't know if you've ever been on a babysitting job, but that's the best thing in the world. The hardest part of the job is completely taken care of. All you have to do is hang out in the living room and not burn the place down, I guess. But then she says something a little weird and offhanded. She tells me that all her kids go to bed on time. So I ask about it because I thought I was only here to babysit one kid. And honestly, that was my mistake, because on that note, she turns kinda dramatically to 30 framed pictures of a little girl surrounded by fake flowers on like a table in the front room, and says to me, she would have been 10 by now. That made me shut up for the next 15 minutes while she got ready for the rest of her night. I was so upset that I had probably upset her. I brought up her dead child. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to make things worse, so I kept my head down and I just stayed quiet. After a couple of minutes, of course, I took out my phone because I'm 14 and I started to play on it while I avoided eye contact with the 30 framed photos of a little girl. And by the time she came out, I figured enough awkward moments have passed that I can finally just start asking my confirming questions and then be done with it. I asked what time she would be home. She said around 2 a.m. at the latest. I said that was no problem for me. I asked her if $60 was still our agreed upon payment, and she also said yes to that. And out of nowhere, she also offers to pay for my cab ride home, explaining that she knew I came from a dirty neighborhood and probably couldn't afford it. And then she really started to lay it on me that this job was probably the best opportunity I've had, ever. And although it paid a little better than my neighborhood jobs, I was starting to pick up some real sketch vibes around here. And with that, I basically stopped talking to her, except to wish her well when her friend picked her up for her night out. I settled into the couch, watching YouTube on my phone, having a good time, and I didn't even hear a peep out of the kid, which was a little confusing, because on jobs like this, usually the kid will wake up in the middle of the night and start wondering, hey, where's mom? Where's dad? I want to be with them right now. Sometimes they're confused, sometimes they cry, sometimes you can comfort them and send them back to bed. But the whole night, I didn't hear anything from him. To the point where I was even wondering if there was a kid. But I pushed that out of my mind. I don't have to deal with that. There probably is a kid. Nobody hires you to babysit a house while they go out for about 6 hours. Around 10 p.m., I turn on her TV to see if anything good is on. Nothing good was on. 11 a.m. rolls around. Still nothing good on TV. Also nothing really good on YouTube. And I start to get tired, but it's not really a big deal. Then at midnight, the house becomes unbearably cold. And this woman has a leather couch and no blankets. So instead of hunting for a blanket, I decide to just pick up the sweater that I wore here and put that back on. 1 a.m. comes and goes. 2 a.m. is when I watch the clock instead of my phone because my phone is on 5%. And then very suddenly, it's 6:45 a.m. and there's a loud crash, like right beside me. I'm startled awake and I look over to the door and she's standing there being practically held together by this dude who doesn't look at all drunk, but she looks trashed. She comes in, looks at me, and then seems really confused before things fully click. And she asks me why I'm still here. I explain that she asked me to babysit and it would be weird if I wasn't. She looks like she just hit some sort of weird clarity and says she'll just be a minute while she calls me a cab. She whispers something to the guy and then nods and walks past me to the back room. I don't want to know what she whispered to the guy, I didn't ask. When she comes back, she hands me $20. I tell her that she's about 40 short. She says that she isn't, she promised me 20. I explain that we actually talked before she left and it was 60. And we both agreed. And on the tip of that, it was almost 7. It's 5 hours past the agreed upon time, and she tells me that I'm from a dirty neighborhood and that I probably need the cash to support my parents anyway, so I should just be happy that I got paid. I tell her that this won't even cover a cab fare home, and she tells me to pay the driver and then give the rest to my parents. We argue back and forth. She ends up saying that I can take or leave the money, but the cab is coming to pick me up, and in 10 minutes, whether I like it or not, and I tell her that I'll wait outside for the cab and pocket the 20. As soon as I walk out of the house, she slams and locks the door. Since I was desperate for cash, I walked home. And it was the early morning. As soon as I was near my bed, I fell asleep immediately. On Monday, I got a message from her asking if it would be okay for me to babysit again, and how her kid loved me, and she will even get me a cab to and from her house this time because she knows I didn't take the first one. Her words. So I ghosted her. No contact. I warned my cousin that he shouldn't go there and to block her number entirely. If I'm ever hear from her again, it'll be way too soon. And that's the story of how babysitting jobs can actually suck. Always get paid up front, kids. Anyway, this is Glargity once again, telling you to stay safe, stay home, and not to trust adults you don't know. Remember to like and subscribe if you want more of these. I promise it's free.